Hey there, welcome back, Delvers, to the Vaults Remastered. We're going to finish up our saga of 10 strategies that you as a game master can use in order to increase your players' engagement in your TTRPG. Today's episode, we're going to conclude with the Big Bang, right? We're talking about the climax, the final finale, end of the story. Not necessarily the campaign, but the story arc you're working on. And you want your players to come back, right? And you're not sure they're going to come back for campaign 2. Are they going to come back for the next session that starts the new arc, the new chapter, the new story? Maybe you ran a one shot and now you want to turn it into something bigger, but are they coming back? Well, one strategy you could use in order to help guarantee that they want to return is to leverage their backstories in that big climactic ending that you planned hours for, weeks for, months for, years for. So let's talk about what this strategy is and get into how to deploy this in your game. So hey, what are we talking about here leveraging backstory and character events? Well, here it is. The strategy is you want to weave each of your player characters' narratives or narrative threads into the final chapter. You know this event's coming up. You know the plot is coming to the close. You know the story arc is ending. The campaign is going to be over. So you want to make sure that all that hard work you've been doing and getting your players to follow along and all their characters' stories have been woven into the plot. Well, make sure that they come to the point at the end of the story. Otherwise, you kind of messed up, in my opinion. So that's what we're talking about here. Taking those narrative threads and weaving them one last time into that sharp point of the final chapter, story arc, entire campaign, whatever it is you're running. Now, hey, what's this talking about? Well, you want to take the backstory elements from your characters, and you want to make sure that you incorporate them into these climaxes, because you're trying to ensure that the story ending feels like it was designed for those players from the get-go. Yeah, you've been secretly weaving things in and out of the plot since, the whole game started, but you want to make sure it seems flawless at the end, that all that hard work that your players had done and all the stories that they had told and all those clues they had pursued and whatever else, that it takes them to the end of the journey for their character. So really know what your character's final goals are within the context of the campaign is important here, because now you want to bring it home, right? You want to land that plane on the tarmac. All right, now hey, where and when are you applying this? Well, personalized resolution is one of the things you want to take a look at. So by weaving these elements from each of the characters' backstories into the culminating events, into the climax. It's not just a conclusion of like the story, the external conflict, beating the big bad evil guy at the very end, but it's also gonna be a capstone for the character's arc. So this is, how you want to apply this or where you want to apply this. You want to bring that personal resolution to the ending, right? And the climax, it's a moment of reflection for the characters. It's a moment of revelation. It's a resolution of their personal conflicts, and it's going to make the ending much more meaningful and memorable for the players if it ends their story as well. So it's not just concluding the game or the session or the arc or whatever it was, it's concluding their story on top of all that. So, of course, this is something that takes a lot of planning, a lot of strategy, and it's like the last thing you're trying to do. And if you've been doing a lot of the other strategies all along, it's not impossible. You've been moving towards this moment ever since. All right, then the other, where and when is you're looking for repeat customers in a lot of cases, right? You want your players to come back, and I don't just mean, oh, the next session. But if you're running a campaign and it's going months, it's going years, and maybe people seem like they're running out of gas, running out of steam. Well, that's possible, especially if you get to the ending and it didn't satisfy, it didn't fulfill. Not just that, oh, they beat, the evil dragon or whatever, but maybe they slayed the evil dragon with the heirloom sword weapon that one of your player characters, had to reclaim from their conquered homeland during the campaign, during one of the story arcs. Now you've got not just the ending of the story, but you've got an ending to that character's arc too. Like, you can see them holding their father's sword and saying that, that prayer, that thank you, Father, for leaving this blade to me. It was, the thing I needed to slay the evil champion. And if you can conclude this way and wrap it up this way, you're going to get your players to want to come back. And again, we don't have to talk about years-long campaign here. It could simply be a story arc, right? It could be a chapter. It could be one of the books in an adventure path if you're running Pathfinder, right? So whatever it is, as that culminating moment is coming, it's maybe that preliminary big bad evil guy from level 1 to 4, level 1 to 5. You're wrapping that up. You want your player characters to come back and play the next 5 levels or the next chapter or the next book in the adventure path. Well, give them a reason, right? Not just while you had a cool story, but the cool story reeled in their characters, and bang, their characters mattered. Their personal stories mattered, because without it, that climactic ending would not have concluded the way it did. All right, implementation. How are you going to go about doing this? Well, as it's probably obvious, you need to start planning early, right? That doesn't mean that from session 0 through session 500, you've got it all locked down and you know the exact A to Z route. No, but you have a plan for your end game. You have this vision of where things are going to go. And as you're playing the game, and as session 0 and the characters are being created, when you're looking at those backstories, start thinking early, how is it that that character can fit into that dream ending that you have, that culminating event, that battle against the evil, lich that you've been plotting out since day one? Where does that character fit, and specifically what in their backstory could be useful, that arc that the character was going through would matter, would be necessary to be at the end of the story? So you're planning for this thing, you're mapping out how your character's backstory and their ongoing narrative, how it's going to intersect with or contribute to that climax from the get-go. And if you're thinking about this from the beginning, that foresight is going to give you the advantage, because now you're going to be able to seamlessly integrate the personal elements that you've been making note of all along into that final event, and just bang, dropping it down, and the characters be like, "Oh my God, you complete me," so to speak, right? That kind of concept is what you're going for. And then the other thing you want to shoot for here, or how to do this, is make sure you aim for heavy impact. You want to interlace the backstory elements that you've gotten from your characters. You've been mapping them out and making note of them ever since you've been, planning this whole game. So you're making sure that that long sought redemption that they've been after, the confrontation with that figure from their past, that fulfillment of their personal quest, that is where the main plot slams home at the very end, at that climactic moment. So it's not just, oh, I slayed the dragon with my father's sword, but like, this was the culminating moment for that character, right? Like, that sword was meant to be theirs, and it was. I'm almost thinking Conan here, the movie Conan, where the father makes the riddle of steel, the sword, and Conan at the end of that movie cuts off Thulsa Doom's head with that very sword that his father had given to him and had been stolen by Thulsa Doom, and it had been broken during the fight, and he still hacks his head off. If haven't seen that movie, got to check it out. Conan, Arnold Schwarzenegger, 1980, something like that, it came out. Great movie. Heavy impact, right? If that was just some other sword, it wouldn't have had the same impact. Like, yes, he got revenge for his father, but if it was his father's sword, if it wasn't his father's sword, it wouldn't have been as impactful. That's what you're going for here. So you have the cool climactic ending, but now it's tangible. It's back to that personal level for the characters, that emotion. And then I'm guaranteeing at that point your player's going to want to come back. Like, wow, did you see the way that campaign ended? That story arc ended? Man, what's next? I can't wait to find out. All right, now example from my game, and this is spoiler country. So if you are a player in my game, you have to leave. You gotta go. I cannot advance the slide to the next one until you leave. I'll give you 3 seconds to get yourself out of here. Sorry, but this is just too much. Too many spoilers. 3, 2, 1, go away. Everybody else, you can stick around. So, example from my game. Now, this has not yet happened, but I'm planning this. I'm plotting this. I'm thinking this is going to work. And by the way, this is a spin-off of the plot twist that I discussed in the 9th video in this series. So if you haven't seen that one yet, you need to like this video, you need to subscribe to the channel, you need to click your notification bell. You need to go check out that playlist and look at it, the whole integrating the characters' backstories and the plot twists. Because during that plot twist, I introduced this concept, this idea, and now I'm kind of taking it to what's the next level? Where is it potentially going? And I dropped a clue about this in my Tuesday game. So if my players are still here, you got to go because you're going to spoil it for yourself and you're not going to have fun. Bye. All right, the rest of you, here's my game example, Twisted Alliance. So here's the idea. Lead up. The party discovers that there's this entity in art called known as the Architect, which is one of these constructs. It's the creation of the big bad evil guy known as the Nexus, which is this arcano intelligence alien construct computer thing that is assimilating as many organic creatures as it can. Think the Borg from Star Trek. Architect is one of its creations, and it was given pseudo autonomy in order to pursue and augment this assimilation process. The Nexus was attempting to bud off pieces of its consciousness in order to accelerate its process, its program. It was finding that its normal thralls were too locked down. So it breaks off this architect and gives it pseudo autonomy. Well, the architect is kind of going off on its own completely at this point. So the party discovers Architect plans to use the observatory's core. The observatory is a location known as the Deep Opal Observatory within the current settlement that the player characters are doing most of their activities in. A geode-like cavern within the vaults known as Gemheart, and it's a sacred religious city for the Oread people, the stone people, or the Earth Genasi if you're playing D&D, but they're known as Oreads in Pathfinder game terms. Anyway, this place has been infiltrated, assimilated, or whatever. At least people, perhaps, that not all of them, but the architect and its followers, these assimilants, are going to use this thing to create like a harmonic frequency, some sort of resonant wave that's going to travel through the ground, through the quartz, through the crystals that the Oread are like attuned to because they're people of stone. And it's going to assimilate everybody, the entire population of Gemheart all at once. It's like a big seismic type of wave that's just going to corrupt everybody, right? The party discovers this nefarious plot at some point. Exactly when, I don't know, but that's in my head. They will get to this point within the next. They just hit level 2, and they just started getting some sniffs of this is what's going on. So by level 3, for sure, next few sessions, they'll be on to this. Level 4 is when I'm kind of envisioning this big finale in Gemheart. So that's kind of lead up. Now, this now ties back into the plot twist I was talking about last session, in which a gem, a pendant that one of the characters by the name of Welverin, he's one of my Spite Spawn, he's like the tiefling of my game world. The Spite Spawn, he and his younger sister have these little pendants with emeralds. And the plot twist is that these emeralds are like tags. Think like alien abduction sort of stuff that the Nexus would use through its thralls, through its assimilants, to hand out these pendants to targets, to marks, to entities it wishes to assimilate, but it's monitoring them for nefarious purposes, collecting data on them before it plans on executing its plan, which involves just targeting people of artistic or emotional, frequency for whatever reason. And Welverin's a bard, and he's Spite Spawn, which has its own like weird mental, emotional issues. Again, check out my previous video; you'll know more what I'm talking about. So anyway, the party gets communication from the Nexus directly that it wants their help, specifically Welverin, because it's going to be seducing him in the upcoming sessions. A little secret twist. Spoiler again: if you're still here as a player, you're bad. That's on you now. Now you know too much. And you know what we have to do to people who know too much? You either got to roleplay like you don't know anything and keep your mouth shut, or you're going to get your character killed, because that's how we roll in this game. So anyway, Nexus reaches out. and says, yo, this architect is going out of my control. I need your help. It's already got its clutches into Welverin, and it's going to portray itself as this guardian of this twisted form of order that it believes is required, and it needs Welverin's help and the party's help in order to stop the architect's plan. And it's going to tap into Welverin's deep fears about never finding emotion, his desire for beauty, and poetry and artistry and all that stuff. And so anyway, Nexus is gonna get into his psyche there and attempt to manipulate him and the other party members in order to follow along. Now, this may require me to work a little bit under the table with the player himself. I might have to go and reach out to Riley and give him a little bit spoiler because I think part of this may require active role play against the party a little bit. I'm not saying, we're going to backstab them, but I think if he plays along here and, if the player has complete agency, right? They might just say, "Oh, well, I'm not going to take this deal," right? That's within their agency rights. And at that point, like, okay, great. Right? And then the problem is it kind of spoils the story of the angle where I'm going for. So I might reach out and say, hey, Riley, I need you to kind of follow along with this. And when I do this, I've done this with players before. Hey, nothing like your player's not going to get like, assassinated, whatever. I mean, there's still a chance you might die, but would you be interested in playing along with this, helping the story go in a certain direction and, bring them behind the screen a little bit? Any other time I've done this so far, players have been cool with it. And it would be nice to know if the players, oh, no, I don't want to get anything to do with it because then I'm going to have to change my plan, right? So, anyway, he goes along with it. That's kind of my concept here, right? Then this leads to his sort of crucible moment. And this is where I don't want to take his agency away because I'd like for him to have to live this. So I either got to figure out a way to make the stakes so high that his character must go along, or else, maybe I'm gonna have to put his sister at risk. I'm almost thinking about reactivating her character. She's currently frozen in fossilized form, petrified form. So I might have to awaken her and have her on the bad guy's side, the architect side, and the Nexus steps up and says, Welverin, I'm on your side. I need your help. I will free your sister. That might be his emotional part here. I might have to play that card if I want to give him more agency. So still kind of figuring out how I want to do this. But anyway, he's going to have to decide whether he's going to align with the Nexus or not. And if he does, he has to use his pendant, which ties into I guess the mechanics, because I'm kind of thinking these pendants like little alien technology, because Nexus does have some alien technology, like literal alien technology within it. So I'm thinking this Opal Observatory, its power source, this core, this whatever crystal opal thing that's in the middle of it, that's supposed to be at a certain frequency. These pendants are similar in the technology, and so there'll be some sort of, I don't want to say ritual, but some sort of process that he could use his pendant to do, and maybe his bardic magic, right, in order to activate a counter frequency to disrupt the core of the observatory and shut down this attempt. But of course, it's going to be extremely dangerous to his character, like his very, whatever life could be at stake here. So this decision's personal sacrifice. We're leveraging his essence through his energy, his music, his love for the sister, which he's just discovering, and and he's trying to counter this ritual or this conversion in order to save Gemheart, which he might not care about, and potentially countless of others which he might not care about, which is where the agency versus no agency, the reason I'm thinking about maybe playing the hope cards. I think I could throw in there. You could save Gemheart. You could save all these hundreds and thousands of people from this horrible process, because once these people are assimilated, they're going to go out and assimilate more. It's not going to stop here. And your sister's life is at stake here. You could do all of this. You could be the big hero. So I think that would be enough to get him to step up and say, yeah, I'll take the risk, right? Because this could be deadly for his character, which I'll get to in a second. All right, then the next thing is, all right, now we got to integrate this into the big climax, right? The climactic integration. So the final stand. So start picturing this, right? The party is infiltrating the observatory. They're bypassing these assimilants and these constructs and whatever that are, operating this thing. And they have the knowledge that their actions uh, are aligning now with what Nexus wants, which originally Nexus is the big bad evil guy that they were trying to. At right now, they're thinking we have to take this thing down, but now all of a sudden the Nexus has offered us a chance to take down this immediate threat known as the Architect. Which side do we choose? If they're choosing this side, they're like, damn it, we gotta do this to stop the Architect, this immediate threat. But now we're on the side of Nexus. What does it want if we actually help it? Because it can't just be as easy as, oh yeah, you take out the Architect for me, thank you very much. All right, so the climax therefore is to be this multi-layered confrontation. The party's taking on the Architect's forces. Welverin's got the struggle. Maybe he's operating under the radar. That's the other way I could play this. The party doesn't know. He convinces them, hey, we need to take these actions. I wouldn't want to take away their agency either, so I think they need to be in the loop to a degree. Otherwise, let's say that player F's over the other players, and then they're like, "What the hell? That's we would have known." So you got to juggle this. You got to figure this out as a GM because you don't want to screw anybody over too much. So anyway, his internal struggle. There's this looming manipulation of the Nexus. What does it want? That's in the background. All this stuff is like coming to the head here, right? And then we get to the resolution, we get to the reckoning. So this counter frequency thing that Welverin has to do and the party is assisting with, it succeeds. The observatory's core is shattered. The architect's plans are stopped. Maybe the architect itself is destroyed. And the Nexus is still alive, still this threat. And it's really got its hooks into Welverin at this point, leaving doubts about the future. And I'm actually almost thinking I might give the player the option here. Your character could die here. That could be the decision you want to make. In order to save hope, I might offer the player the option to sacrifice their character, sacrifice Wolverine, like you're gone from the game. And then you can start a new character. Obviously, you could even take over Hope if you wanted to. That could be some of you might be saying that's crazy. Like, who would want to do that? But think about it. Some players might like want to go out this heroic thing, heroic ending to their story. It's an option I could put on the table. That's why, again, I would want to talk to this player, behind the screen and say, hey, here's some plans, here's some options. Would Welverin be interested in making the ultimate sacrifice if it meant XYZ, right? Because if the player's like, yeah, hell yeah, now you really got some fun going, right? Now they're in on it, and you can really start to plot this out and try to then bring in the other characters, not kill them all, but just bring them in now because you got for sure Welverin's going with it. So I could give that option to Welverin. Like your player could be dead, or your character could be dead. You could have a complete alteration of your character. Maybe it becomes a different ancestry, it becomes a cyborg or android or whatever, right? You could go in that direction. You could retcon your entire character. It could gain some new powers. It could become an NPC and become a servant of the Nexus and still be in the game in that fashion. That's another way a player might want to go. Yeah, I want to sacrifice my character, but I still want it to be in the game. And now it's perhaps a big bad evil guy. It takes over maybe the Nexus's persona. Maybe that was the Architect's persona. That was the Nexus's plan the whole time to rein in this rogue architect and to release this newly seduced thrall of this Welverin, right? Bam. Plot twist, climactic moment, end of a character's powerful story arc, birth of a new character's story arc. I mean, it could be awesome, right? Ending that chapter of the game as well. Bam! Like I said, I want to put the ending to this Gemhearts chapter at that point, around level 4, let's say. Wouldn't that be a great ending? Poetic ending, a story ending for this character. Dead, assimilated, evil, whatever you want to say, a whole new start. Again, though, the player might say, no, I want, my guy to be around. Okay. It kind of reels it back in. So maybe there's whatever new powers are gained, new insights are made. Maybe hope is lost, right? His sister is taken. Maybe that's the choice. It's either you or hope. Which one are you going to take? That would be a powerful climactic moment that you could throw in there, right? And all this is from the backstory. That's the emerald thingy that we came up with during the plot twist. His sister Hope, which was written into his backstory. She's an NPC in the game. She's figured pretty prominently in this first few sessions already. So it's been a lot of interesting stuff I'm pulling from his character sheet that he's given to me willingly, right? All right, then the other thing here is that the payoff here, of course, is that Welverin's going to emerge forever changed, like I'm saying. He's confronted this dichotomy of the chaos and order, which is the main theme of the game, right? Chaos versus order. He's had to choose. Does he choose to side with order, Nexus, the tyrant, this computer, assimilant thingy? Or do you go with chaos? Screw Gemheart, screw my sister, screw all this stuff. I'm out of here. Let it all burn. He could make that choice, right? Powerful moment for the character. Sacrificing for the greater good, or is the greater good to hell with it, right? Or is he given to the seduction of promises and power that Nexus is given to him? Emotions. She'll program him with emotions so he actually feels something. And then this leaves the whole party trying to figure out the implications of what they've done, because at this point, the architects defeated, Welverin's maybe changed permanently. They've saved Gemheart, but they just what about the Nexus? What did it get out of all this? Because weren't they supposed to be trying to take it down, and now they just helped it by defeating the thing it was afraid of, this architect? Mind screw. They're going to try to figure that one out. So all these cool things you can bring together, this explosive climactic moment, all these threads that you've been weaving through the story, and bam, you smash it home in the climactic ending. So that is kind of what I'm planning, right? But this being an RPG, I mean, who knows if that's going to happen or not? Because the players all could die in the next session, and then you kind of got to start from scratch. So that's sort of my side tangential message here: is don't plan anything set in stone. This is just a dream ending, but don't lock into this, because if something bad happens, let's say Welverin dies, one of the other characters dies, something goes on, right? They decide not to help the Nexus. Well, then this whole storyline, this whole climactic ending, I'm thinking isn't going to happen, right? Or it's going to happen with different characters. So that is why you have to be loose with your plans in the first place. That's the nature of TTRPGs. All right, let's wrap this up. What are the takeaways as a GM you should be getting out of this conversation? Well, here you go. Consider your character's backstories as the vital influences on your story's trajectory. So, where is your story going? Look at the backstories of the characters, because they have influence on their trajectory. They have influence on the resolution, on the climax, on the ending, right? Your characters aren't just along for the ride and they just happen to be the people rolling the dice, or that the dice are affecting. They should be affecting the dice. They should be determining the dice that are being rolled. And I mean that metaphorically, not literally. They're in charge. I've been saying this throughout this entire series, that your characters are the story, right? That's who it's about. So everything else you've been doing to this point is trying to bring their backstories and help to direct the story itself, make the story more exciting, more fun, more engaging. And you got to then finish it up, right? You got to hit to the climax and bang, look at their stories from the get-go as you're picturing this climactic ending. And in my example, it does have to be the ending of the campaign, right? I'm just talking about the ending of this architect, which is, I mean, that's like boss level 1, right? There's the whole Nexus, there's the Vantasphere, there's all this other stuff going on that could take me to level 20, right? Depending on how things go. Or I could end the story right there with a level 4 resolution and they all die. I mean, that's another possibility, right? But then I can pick up the story, you know, days later, weeks later, in the aftermath of that with new characters. So it's either way it works, right? Other takeaway: make sure or ensure each of your characters' journeys gets acknowledged, gets honored in your story's conclusion, right? So as you're planning the big hurrah, the big finale, I mostly talked about Welverin there in that example, but I've got 4 other characters. I need to make sure that they are woven into that ending as well. What are they getting out of it? It's not just, okay, everybody helped Welverin and we all feel, good about it, but what is, my Wormseed Quillflame getting out of it? What is my Weaveling Saida getting out of it? What is Yasu the Ganishio getting out of it? What is Nesni the Orog getting out of it? Although I changed the name of that to, what is it? Ignoruk. Sorry. Ignoruk. What are they all getting out of this? So there's got to be some little something something from their backstories as well that's also coming to a head during this event. And I've already, got a couple ideas. Nesni and her cult interactions. You got Quillflame and her being drawn towards the obsidian leviathan that has been reborn. You've got Saida and his tie into his weaveling community that he's, abandoned. You've got Yasu and their enamorment or whatever, a love of all their little tinkering toys and constructs that they're building. They have a definite connection, again, spoiler, to what's going on with Nexus that character doesn't know about yet. So all that stuff is going to be woven in and making this, spear point or hammer blow at the very end of just this chunk of the campaign. So this is probably going to end up maybe being at minimum 12 sessions, probably closer to 15, where we just finished, what, 7 or 8, session 7 or 8. We play every 2 weeks. So, we've played a few months now, but this is going to be about 6 months into the game when this will finally, like, bang and drop. All right, and then the last takeaway here is you want to use this holistic approach to this climax that you're trying to build up, because it's the culmination not just of the story and the conflicts of the story, the threat of the Nexus, chaos versus order, whatever the architect is up to, right? All those external conflicts that are threatening the party. But think about it also being the culmination of your characters' internal journeys. Where were they going? And I get back to this again, the backstories that they've written or that you ask them to write, or the questionnaire that you have them complete, there's information in there about their story. And that story, of course, is evolving, which is why you're, taking notes and paying attention to what your characters are doing throughout the course of these sessions, because their journey might not be known at the very start, but picks up in session 4. Something starts to happen. So that is where you want to make sure that is going to end as well. Their journeys are satisfied. Not that it's ended forever, but it starts a new journey, perhaps. So, for instance, Welverin survives and he's transformed into something else. This launches a new journey. Maybe his sister has died. This launches a new journey. Maybe his sister's permanently assimilated, and that's what Nexus was after. That starts a new journey, right? So start to not only think about the ending, but then think about a potential sequel spin-off, because you could drop the hard ending here and end your story. Maybe your players just, hey, they're not going to come back at that point. Or, wow, I can't believe that ended like that. Where are we going next? Bang, you got them, and now you have another, leaping off point. All right, there you go, ladies and gents. That was the end of the story, the end of the takeaways, the whole kit and caboodle. Here they are, the 10 strategies that I'm talking about you using in order to increase the engagement of your players in your game, weaving personal stakes in the main quest, utilizing NPCs from the characters' backstories, incorporating nostalgic locations, aligning character goals with plot objectives, revealing character secrets, running parallel quests, evolving characters with or through challenges, seeking thematic resonance, making callbacks to PC histories in plot twists, and the last one we just talked about, leveraging the backstories in those climactic moments, those climactic events. Hopefully this was good information, useful information. If so, you like, you subscribe, you notify, you put some comments down below. What do you think? Any other strategies out there that you've used? You think I missed some? You think there's too many? I don't know. Give me some feedback. Let me know what you're thinking. In the meantime, have yourselves a good night. Peace out. Much love.